In a quiet corner of the city's popular zoo, what started as an ordinary visit quickly spiraled into an incident no one could have imagined. Families wandered through exhibits, marveling at the animals, with children giggling and pointing at creatures they'd only seen in books. Among them was a young boy, bright-eyed and full of curiosity, visiting the Reptile House for the very first time. His excitement was palpable as he and his family moved from enclosure to enclosure, fascinated by the intricate patterns of snakes and the steady stillness of lizards. But lurking just beyond the thick glass, something far more sinister was waiting to unfold. A staff member, tasked with keeping the reptiles and visitors safe, acted in a way that no one could comprehend. Eyewitnesses described the man's demeanor as cold and calculated, his every move unsettling. Then came the moment that would leave every onlooker stunned and horrified. Without warning, he made the unthinkable decision to open an enclosure housing a highly venomous snake, directing it toward the boy, who had no idea of the danger rushing toward him. The air froze as fear rippled through the crowd. People shouted, hands rushed to phones to call for help, and parents shielded their children, unsure of what might happen next. Yet, in this moment of chaos, questions raced through everyone's minds. Why would a trusted worker do such a thing? Was there more to this shocking act than met the eye? As the snake moved closer to the boy, everyone held their breath, unsure if tragedy or an unexpected twist awaited. What followed left not just those present, but the entire community reeling, proving that even in moments of great fear, the truth can be more unbelievable than the act itself. As the crowd stood frozen, trying to comprehend what had just happened, the boy's mother instinctively stepped forward, pulling him behind her. Her face was a mixture of fear and defiance, her protective instincts kicking in as she confronted the Reptile House worker. Others nearby shouted in disbelief, some demanding answers, others pleading for someone to intervene. The staff member, oddly calm amidst the chaos, offered no explanation, his eyes fixed on the boy as if detached from the unfolding terror. It was as though he was carrying out an act he believed was justified, though no one could fathom why. In the seconds that felt like hours, zoo security finally arrived, alerted by the panicked cries of visitors. They rushed into the Reptile House and quickly assessed the situation, moving cautiously to contain the now agitated snake. But their actions only added to the confusion. Why had this happened in the first place? Who was this employee, and what had pushed him to do something so reckless? Murmurs spread through the stunned crowd as questions and speculations took root. Some whispered about his strange behavior earlier in the day, while others argued that something darker might be at play. The boy, meanwhile, stood trembling but unharmed behind his mother, clutching her leg tightly. His innocent trip to see snakes had turned into something out of a nightmare, and his wide eyes reflected the fear and confusion of everyone in the room. At this point, the zoo had become a scene of chaos and uncertainty. Parents clung to their children, some leaving in a hurry, while others lingered, unable to tear themselves away from the unresolved mystery. And despite security taking the worker away, the unease lingered. What was the real story behind his actions? As the security team escorted the worker out of the Reptile House, the onlookers couldn't help but wonder what could have driven him to do something so unthinkable. A few zoo staff members, visibly shaken, exchanged hurried whispers, suggesting this wasn't entirely out of character. "He's always been strange," one muttered, her voice barely audible over the murmurs of the crowd. Rumors began to surface, with some employees recalling past incidents where he had behaved oddly around certain visitors. But none of those moments had escalated to anything like this. Was there a personal motive? Or was he simply unfit for such a responsibility all along? Outside the exhibit, the boy's family was approached by zoo officials, who apologized profusely and assured them the situation was being handled. But the mother wasn't satisfied. Her voice trembled with a mix of anger and despair as she demanded answers. "This wasn't an accident," she said firmly, locking eyes with one of the higher-ups. "You can't brush this under the rug." Meanwhile, her son remained quiet, his gaze fixed on the enclosure that had so quickly transformed into a scene of danger. He hadn't spoken a word since the ordeal began, his silence weighing heavily on those around him. The situation took another turn when a bystander stepped forward with their phone, claiming to have recorded the incident. The video, blurry but damning, showed the employee deliberately opening the enclosure door and making a hand motion that seemed to direct the snake toward the boy. This new evidence only added fuel to the growing fire, sparking heated debates among visitors. Was the act racially motivated, or was there another reason for such an unimaginable action? The layers of this unfolding mystery deepened, leaving everyone involved searching for clarity amidst the tension and fear. As the video made its way through the crowd, the reactions grew more intense. Conversations turned into heated arguments, with some people demanding immediate answers from the zoo staff, while others tried to understand how this could have happened. The tension in the air was palpable as security personnel tried to manage the growing crowd, urging everyone to remain calm while promising a thorough investigation. But their assurances fell on deaf ears, especially with the boy's mother, whose anger was now fueled by the video evidence. Meanwhile, the snake handler, now in custody, remained eerily silent. The police arrived, and questions began to swirl around his motives. People speculated endlessly. Was this an act of negligence? Or was there something darker at play? The zoo director himself came out to address the gathering, visibly shaken as he tried to explain that this was an isolated incident, a betrayal of trust by one of their own. But his words seemed hollow amidst the chaos, as no explanation could erase the fear and anger radiating from the crowd. At the same time, investigators reviewed the footage, which revealed chilling details. The man had spent an unusual amount of time near the snake's enclosure earlier that day, a detail corroborated by another staff member who had initially thought nothing of it. Whispers among the employees began to paint a troubling picture. This wasn't someone who had simply snapped. There were rumors of past warnings that had gone unheeded, raising the question of whether this could have been prevented. The family was ushered to a private room, but the mother refused to leave until she had answers. With every passing moment, the weight of what had happened grew heavier. Outside, the crowd demanded justice as they awaited the police's next steps. Something about this incident felt too deliberate, and everyone, including the boy's family, knew that the truth was about to reveal something much bigger than any of them could have imagined. As investigators continued piecing together the events, a new revelation emerged that took everyone by surprise. Hidden in the back storage area of the Reptile House, officers discovered a discarded phone belonging to the snake handler. On it were chilling messages exchanged with an unknown contact, discussing plans that hinted at targeting specific visitors. The text threads were cryptic, but seemed to point to something premeditated, adding another disturbing layer to the unfolding story. This wasn't a random accident, and it wasn't merely about negligence. It was now being treated as a potential targeted act. The boy's mother, still in the private room, was informed of this discovery. Her disbelief turned into a mix of fury and confusion as she demanded answers. What could someone possibly gain from putting a child in harm's way? And why her son? As more details surfaced, staff began whispering that the snake handler had a history of erratic behavior, though nothing this extreme had ever been reported before. One colleague claimed he had previously voiced frustrations over what he described as ungrateful visitors, though most thought it was harmless venting. Outside, the crowd became increasingly restless as bits of this new information leaked. The tension heightened when the handler was seen being escorted out in handcuffs, flanked by officers. People shouted questions, but he kept his head down and remained silent. The news of the recovered phone quickly spread, igniting a flurry of speculation both within the zoo and on social media. What was the purpose of those messages? Could others be involved? And most urgently, was this boy the only target? Meanwhile, a sense of unease hung in the air as the mother refused to leave until every detail was revealed. Though her son was now safe, the shadow of the incident continued to loom large, raising fears of what else might come to light. It was becoming clear that this was no isolated event, and the stakes had just been raised dramatically. As the investigation reached its peak, the authorities combed through the messages on the snake handler's phone, deciphering patterns and codes that pointed to an even larger scheme. It was revealed that the man had not acted alone. Several weeks' worth of correspondence showed that he was part of a troubling online group fixated on creating chaos in public spaces, particularly targeting vulnerable groups. The group believed such acts would test institutional responses, using fear as a twisted means of proving their ideals. The police tracked down the handler's main contact, someone operating under a pseudonym, believed to be the mastermind behind these disturbing plans. With every passing moment, the mother's determination to get answers only deepened. She demanded a meeting with the zoo's management, questioning how such a person had been allowed to work there without proper vetting. Shockingly, it was during this meeting that an even more unexpected truth surfaced. The handler hadn't just stumbled upon the snake or chosen his victim at random. Records showed he had researched visitors' schedules, particularly groups with school tours. Her son's class had unknowingly been added to his list weeks earlier, likely due to their pre-planned trip to the zoo. As the handler faced questioning, the final twist came to light. It turned out the venomous snake, though initially appearing to strike the boy, had been intervened upon by the handler himself moments before the event, rendering it harmless by replacing its venom with a serum. This raised more baffling questions. Did he orchestrate the act simply for attention or to push some other agenda? While the boy remained unharmed, the ordeal left his family and everyone involved grappling with the unsettling motives and deeper implications. By the end of the day, the handler and several accomplices were formally charged, and zoo management promised to overhaul their policies to ensure this could never happen again. But for the family, the scars of the experience would linger far longer than the media storm that followed. In the days that followed, the zoo reopened its doors with heightened security measures and a renewed focus on safety and transparency. For the boy and his family, life slowly returned to normal, but the experience left its mark in unexpected ways. The boy, who had once loved visiting animals, found it difficult to step into public places without fear. His mother, determined to rebuild his confidence, arranged for him to meet a herpetologist, an expert on snakes, who explained how these creatures, despite their reputation, were essential to nature. It was a step toward healing, but it reminded everyone how fragile trust could be. The handler, along with others involved, faced trial and received significant sentences. It was revealed during the proceedings that the handler had a history of erratic behavior that went unchecked by the institution, raising widespread concerns about negligence in employment processes. This brought much-needed attention to policies in not just zoos, but similar organizations across the country. Changes were implemented that prioritized mental health screenings and extensive background checks, making the story part of a broader societal reckoning. The unexpected twist regarding the snake's venom being replaced with serum led many to speculate about the handler's true intentions. Some saw it as a sign that, for all his troubling actions, he wasn't entirely heartless, while others dismissed it as another ploy for attention. Whatever the truth, the focus remained on ensuring such a scenario couldn't repeat itself. In the end, the family took solace in the support they received from their community. Strangers sent letters of encouragement, and local organizations stepped up to provide counseling. The mother's strength in fighting for answers became a symbol of resilience, reminding everyone that even in the darkest moments, there's room to fight for justice, healing, and change.